We're live. I'm always moving on you. In a new spot now, still nondescript. Today, I was battling back and forth with myself about whether or not to do an episode on a political subject. It is Holy Week, or as we call it, Simuna Hamamat, the time or the week of sufferings in the Orthodox Church, according to the Ge'ez Rite, or the Ethiopian branch of the Orthodox Church. But there was some big news today. Balaji Srinivasan, I hope I got that something close to correct. I'm not so great with the Indian tongues. But anyway, he's got an article called Decentralizing Education with Synthesis, along with Amjad, who's behind Replit, and Chrisman, who's the CEO and one of the two co-founders of Synthesis, this online school. They were able to raise $12 million in favor of this new school. And right now it's kind of a part-time school. It's more like an after-school program, but I think they do have plans to eventually become their own full school. What was once Ad Astra, Elon Musk's school for his kids, because he was not satisfied with the local, even high-level IQ-focused private schools of Los Angeles, became Astronova. And Astronova, I believe, is an all-online school. And I'll get to more of my thoughts in the end, but I might as well just read the article to you. It's very short, and I'll link to it in the bio once I'm done editing the video. But it's called Decentralizing Education with Synthesis by Balaji Srinivasan. Very interesting guy in the startup city space, in the crypto space, and in the angel investing space, if you are not familiar. So let's get to it. Decentralizing Education with Synthesis. I'm co-leading Around in Synthesis, a startup scaling the custom school built for Elon Musk's kids. I'm co-leading an investment round in Synthesis with Replit CEO Amjad Masad. It's a fresh take on early childhood education based on the custom school built for Elon Musk's kids and the early engineers at SpaceX. Why a new school? Confidence in public schools is at historic lows. Parents want to change, and people can sense that the Prussian education system, the model for American schooling, just isn't working anymore. Perhaps 50 years ago, you might well pull the same lever every day on an assembly line, but today you hit a different key every second. Instruction hasn't kept up. You can watch videos on the synthesis model here, but the fundamental concept is teaching kids how to collaboratively work with information like adults do. In a sense, it's similar to what American education used to be, namely early apprenticeship in the kinds of activities they'd be doing as adults, the system that educated Ben Franklin. Synthesis is starting out as a complement to existing schools, but already has thousands of happy students and parents. Over time, the plan is to add more and more math and science until eventually it's a full-blown alternative to the legacy K-12 system. Ultimately, that may involve building physical classrooms. There are several aspects of synthesis that I think are worth noting, as they are part of a general set of tactics to build opt-in alternatives to failing institutions. First, digital, then physical. A full replacement for the education system will eventually require physical locations. Too many parents depend on state-run schools for childcare. However, it's important to go digital first, then physical. Synthesis is building a networked community online, and then, later, creating physical infrastructure as needed. I think he was meant to write as need be, so I'll throw a verbal SIC or SIC there. Scale what can be scaled. Today's K-12 instruction can be decoupled into A, curricula, B, small group tutoring, and C, de facto childcare. While the tutoring and childcare components will continue requiring hands-on attention for each student, the curricula can be created by world-class instructors and cost-effectively scale to millions of children. That means one could have the polish of a Hollywood movie or an AAA quality game for educational content, which is what Synthesis is working on. Go direct. Legacy media is incentivized to protect legacy systems. Therefore, companies offering an exit must go direct to customers, and build their own distribution. Otherwise, they'll either get politically attacked or forced to fold back into the values of the incumbent system. And so, synthesis is reaching parents entirely through social media and eschewing legacy media corporations. Make exit easy. Our education systems won't reform from within. The necessary improvements require too much change. The only real solution is to create something better from the ground up that's so attractive, users can't help but exit the old system. Something like that doesn't arise overnight. It's proved out in the stages by people gradually opting out of the current system, providing feedback and driving features till the parallel system is better in all respects and ready for broad adoption. This too is part of the synthesis strategy. Win and help win. Finally, the aim of education should be to train kids to grow the global pie for humanity so all can benefit. In other words, kids need to learn how to work together and succeed in a competitive environment so that they can contribute to the common good. And Synthesis believes that teaching values like this is as important as teaching calculus. Human capital is the bottleneck to civilizational progress. It's our scarcest resource. To increase the supply, the highest leverage place to begin is K to 12. If we can fix that system, we have a base for a better world. That's what Synthesis aims to do. So I'll link to the article so you all could read it on your own and follow the links. He presents a lot of different hyperlinks. I'm sorry, I just laughed at what Mithridates wrote. Ethiopian Michael Malice. I'll take it. Michael Malice is not doing too shabby. If I was just doing half as well as him, I would be very satisfied with my life. And I'm already satisfied with my life, and I'm not doing half as well as he's doing. So I'll give you all the original link. It's at balajis.com/synthesis right now, but I'll throw it up right now. Let me throw it in the chat, and then I'll put it in the actual description once this is a fully uploaded video on the channel. So briefly on the apprenticeship point, one of my favorite series growing up is kind of a mix between science fiction and fantasy. And the first book in that series is called The Magician Apprentice. And it's about this boy who's got this longing for this apprenticeship, but he doesn't seem to fit in any of the categories. Spoiler alert, like being a blacksmith or being a cavalryman or being a knight or all these, an archer, whatever the various positions are. I don't even remember because I read it so long ago. But where he found that he fit was with this, as the apprentice of this magician who everyone had seen as like a black sorcerer and ostracized and otherized. And, a lot of tales of people who may feel like the black sheep in their family or in their local communities will be able to relate. And I certainly did. That's a series by Raymond E. Feist, and it begins Magician Apprentice. So that, along with, I think, various biographies of Benjamin Franklin and how he started off, I think it was in a printing shop or a press shop, you'll see what the apprentice lifestyle is, and you could see that as a way forward. So one thing to say is, what is it? Amjad Masad wrote his own piece on this, which I believe is linked in this piece, and I'm not going to read that one, but because I didn't know much about Replit actually before this, but Replit is this company that helps people kind of all over the world learn how to use technology languages through the browser directly. And so with people learning how to code, putting the meme of that aside, and people learning how to collaborate with other geniuses right now, a lot of the marketing of Synthesis is for the smartest kids because they feel like it's in the legacy systems of K to 12, it's being taught to the lowest common denominator in regards to intelligence. So they're aiming at the higher intelligence having students now with a plan of extending it to obviously everyone in the world. Last time I had heard them in the news, they had about $5 million in funding. So this extra $12 million means people are really believing with that. Chrisman used to be at Class Dojo, which is an amazing, one of the top ed tech companies. He was an engineer over there, I believe. Joshua, who's one of the other co-founders, is the one that's running Astronova right now. And he was a teacher at Merman, a school that I've known a couple people who have been students of, that IQ tested for people to get in there. That's the private school. in Los Angeles, that in the Bel Air area, if I'm not mistaken. So I knew people from the Valley as well as people from LA who are in that orbit. And my schools that I grew up in, a couple private schools, I went to public school as well, but a couple of private schools I went to used to play against them in sports. So I knew people from my life that had been associated with it, but even that was not up to par for Elon Musk. So he nabbed Josh out of there to form this. And what I see about all of these people is they're all futurists. They're all heavy on the technology side. And as you know, I've written in the past about Afro-Asiatic archaeofuturism. Sometimes I'll call it antediluvian futurism or troglodytic futurism. All that is to say, you have to blend the past and the future. And my roots are in Africa and Asia, although I'm born and raised in America. So you could say I'm American Afro-Asiatic or Afro-Asiatic American or whatever you want to say in that regards. But I think Balaji is hinting at physical buildings will be crucial. There are different components. Amjad mentions this actually in his piece, which I did not read, but there's this component of childcare and there's this component of small group tutoring. And I learned this when I did quality assurance boot camp, but a lot of different tech and software and futurist and rationalist and all these various online communities think that with automation, there's going to be some moment of the singularity. And I've become an increasing doubter of this and believing that there's always going to be this human element. And I'm willing to believe that until I'm proven otherwise. So I think that, especially as you get to the less independent groups of people and students, you will always need this human element to intervene and to make decision making and have authority. So this balance of an amazing online school that definitely reminds me of Ender's Game, especially because I should review it soon, but I just recently read The Polish Boy, which is what Orson Scott Card did very early on before I think Ender's Game was released. And it's about Ender's father. And it's kind of a prequel to the Ender's Game series, which I've read about 8 books of, and definitely recommend if you're a science fiction fan. But this gives the vibes of the training school that they had for the youth. And Chrisman, one of the founders or co-founders, has said that that's definitely an inspiration. He's also talked about the progression that people make in jujitsu and used that as an analogy. Obviously, as a jujitsu player, that sticks out to me as well. So look out for them if you have kids. I mean, check out Synthesis, the Synthesis School, and see if you can do it. It's basically gamifying education so that different groups of youth, I think something like ages 6 to 14 or 8 to 14, could get together and problem solve and strategize real world situations. So it's kind of like simulated, gamified education that is fun for people. And it's something that Balaji believes in, that Amjad believes in. Obviously, the founders, Josh and Chrisman, believe in, and I believe in it as well. But as I said, I think there needs to be a balance between the past and the future. And this is heavy on the future side. So I look forward to them getting physical buildings. The analogy I'll give is the way in which Amazon expanded. And then eventually, what do? Now they have Amazon Fresh stores where you can get produce in person. And they also have the Amazon physical brick and mortar bookstores. So there is a path of going from digital to physical. Balaji laid it out. And I think that's what will be essential in keeping the human element or the tried and true Lindy things of the past. I don't see any questions. If anyone has any questions in the next 15 to 30 seconds, I'll stay on. If not, it's enough that I read this for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your Holy Week or your week of sufferings, as we say in the Giz, right? No questions, no problem. Thank you all for joining me.